Hi, in this tutorial, I'd like to show you how to create a question using the drag and drop with markers question type. So the first thing you got to do is create a new question, and we're assuming you have drag and drop with markers installed already. Go to next, and the first thing you do, I guess, would be give your question a name, as you always do. If you'd like to put in a question text, you could, but you don't have to. Let's just do this. Drag the target to the correct location. I could type that if I'd like. Okay, and what I got to do is I got to upload an image. So I already have something here on my computer that I called shapes, and I'm going to upload that file. And you'll notice that this grid comes up. This grid is 600 pixels wide by 400 pixels tall. And you'll notice these squares over here. Each one of these squares are 100 pixels by 100 pixels. So let's say from here to here is 100 pixels to the right on my x-coordinate, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600. And going down on my y-coordinate, from here to have 100, 200, 300, 400. So now what I have to do is I have to define my drop zone area. I have to define my target. So for example, let's say I want to create a question where I want somebody to drop a target onto this left circle over here. So I got to define the coordinates of my left circle. And the way I do that, I tell the question type over here, I got to put in my x-coordinate and y-coordinate of the center and the radius. Now that sounds a little complicated, but it's not so bad. Let's just take a look at how that might work. So let's ask the question, where's the center of this circle? Because I'm defining a target of a circle. So from here to here is about 100, and let's say the center is about 150 pixels to the right on my x-coordinate. So it's going to be a rough guess. It doesn't have to be exact, so I'm going to type here 150, and I'm going to put in a comma. And how far down is this? So I got here about 100, and let's say 100, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to type in 100 on my y-coordinate, and now I got to put in a semicolon. And how wide is my circle? So let's see, it's about 100 and 10, 20, 30. Let's say my radius is about 65. Okay, so you notice that all of a sudden, once I put in those coordinates, this circle automatically popped up. It's not a bad size. It has to be moved a little bit to the right. So let's say it has to be moved about 20 pixels to the right. So I'm going to call this on my x-coordinate 170. Notice how that jumped. And maybe I want to move this down about 10 pixels or so. So I'm going to say here 110, and that's not bad. I could fine-tune this more if I'd like, but I don't think it's really necessary. I'm just asking somebody to drag a target here to the middle, and I have that middle covered. Okay, now what are they going to drag? They have to drag a target, and I'm going to call that target, here it's called a marker, I'm going to call this left circle. Okay, and now you notice where it says marker over here, if I click down, there's something here that says left circle. All right. And here is my left circle. So now let's see what this question looks like. Save my changes, and let's preview the question. Okay, so you notice here's my question text, drag the target to the correct location, and this has to go to the left circle. So if I put this right over there, and I submit and finish, I got 1 out of 1. Had I put it somewhere out of the circle, suppose I would have put this in my right circle and submit and finish. This is wrong, okay? Because I defined the target of a left circle. All right, so that's the basic idea of how this question type works. Let's go back and see a little bit more. Okay, suppose I wanted to add a second circle over here. Or suppose I want to define a rectangle. I could do that as well. Let's do this first with a rectangle. Okay, so now my second area here is a rectangle, so I have to define this area of this rectangle. So I go to here and I say I'm now defining a rectangle. And the coordinates for this rectangle is the top of the rectangle is the x and the y again. So here I have from here about 100, let's call this about 170 on my x-coordinate. So it's 170, I put in my comma. And how far down is this? So this is about 100, 200, let's call it 250. Again, I'm really estimating, could be way off. But again, it doesn't make a difference because once I get in the ballpark, I can fine tune it afterwards. Okay, so now how long is this rectangle? So it's about 100, 200, let's call it 250. Again, if I had more time or I was more careful, maybe I'd be a little more exacting in my first guess. And we'll call this about 100 tall, even though it's not exact. Okay, so this is not a bad rectangle. You can see I'm not that far off. I'd like to move this up about 10, 20. Let's say I want to move this up 30. So instead of 250, this should be 220. Okay, and suppose I want to make this a little bit taller, about 10. I'll make this 20. Add another 20 to this. So now it became, okay, now I want to move this to the left, maybe just a drop. Let's go 160. All right, so here I have defined the area of my rectangle. And I'm going to make a marker for it, and I'm going to call this rectangle. All right, and now if I go here, I have a rectangle thingy, and that's my rectangle. So let's just save this change and see what this looks like. Let's preview the question. All right, now you notice I have two targets. I have a left circle, which this belongs here, and this now has to go on the rectangle. And if I submit and finish, I got 1 out of 1. And again, if I would mix those two around, if I put my left circle here and my rectangle here, I submit and finish, I get nothing right, 0 out of 0. And suppose I just do half of that. Suppose I put my left circle here, but my rectangle here, I would get half right. Here's half out of 1. Okay, and I just want to show one more thing. Let's edit this question again. Suppose I would like, instead of having two separate targets, one for the left circle and one for the right circle, suppose I want to define one label that could go to either of these two circles. Okay, so let's see how that works. So I already have my left circle defined. I'm just going to copy these coordinates, just it's a little bit easier because they're more or less in the same line. I just got to move this to the right a little bit. This has to go over about 100, 200. Let's move this over about 300 to the right. So this will be about 470 or so. Okay, now you notice my second one. Again, I'll fine tune this to the left. I'm looking here about 10, 20, 30. I'm going to move this to the left about 40. So let's call this 430. All right, and here, okay, I have my second circle defined. Now, what I'm going to do is, instead of calling this left circle, I'm going to call this just plain old circle, and I'm going to add this infinite. I'm going to check infinite. All right, and just to make sure, we're going to call this here circle, and this one is going to also be circle. Okay, and let's save this question and see what happens. Let's save my changes, and let's preview this question. So, all right. So here you notice again I have my two labels. Now, when I drag this rectangle label, that's where it goes, and the whole thing went with it. But now look what happens when I drag this circle label. Okay, now I drag this, and there's one left behind. That's because of the infinite tag box that we checked before. And I could put this one over here, and I could put this one over here, or it doesn't make a difference. I could put this here and this here. And if I submit and finish, I should get 1 out of 1. Okay, because that's what we did. We defined the circle label could go in either of these two. And if I would mess up on one of them again, let's say I put this here, and this here, so then I would only get this partially correct, probably 1/3 right. Okay, here we go. So that's the general idea of this question type. I hope this clarified how you work with coordinates and how do you create a question. There's also a polygon shape that you could define, again with its X and Y. You look in the instructions, but that's the general idea of how you define areas on an image. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you found it useful. Thank you for watching.